You ever notice how the people who are most aware of their problems are often the ones who can't seem to fix them? That's not a coincidence. And what I'm about to tell you might actually make you question whether knowing yourself is really as good as everyone says it is. Look, we've all been told that self-awareness is the key to everything, right? Know yourself and you'll unlock happiness, success, better relationships, all of that. But nobody talks about what happens when you become too self-aware. When you start seeing every little thing you do wrong, every pattern, every mistake, and you just can't turn it off. Today, we're diving into something that most people don't want to admit exists: the dark side of self-awareness. That point where your mind literally gets exhausted from watching itself all the time. So here's what happens. You start paying attention to yourself. Maybe you read some books, watch some videos, go to therapy. You begin noticing patterns in your behavior. Why you react certain ways, why you make the same mistakes, why you struggle with the same things over and over. At first, this feels amazing. It's like someone turned the lights on in a dark room. You finally understand yourself. You see the connections between your past and your present. You recognize your triggers, your defense mechanisms, your bad habits. But then something weird starts to happen. You can't stop analyzing yourself. Every conversation you have, you're watching yourself have it. Every decision you make, you're second-guessing it. Every emotion you feel, you're asking why you're feeling it instead of just feeling it. It's like having a camera on yourself 24/7. And you're both the person being filmed and the person watching the footage at the same time. This is what I call the self-awareness trap, and it's way more common than you think. Let me give you an example. Say you're talking to someone at a party. A normal person just talks. They react naturally, laugh when something's funny, share stories, whatever. But when you're hyper self-aware, you're doing something completely different. You're talking, but you're also watching yourself talk. You notice that you interrupted them. Now you're thinking about why you interrupted them. Is it because you're anxious? Is it because you need validation? Is it because your parents never let you finish your sentences as a kid? And while you're thinking about all of this, you've completely checked out of the actual conversation. The other person is still talking, but you're gone. You're in your head, analyzing yourself, judging yourself, trying to figure out what your behavior means. This is exhausting, and it never stops. Here's where it gets even worse. When you're this self-aware, you start to see all your flaws in high definition. And I mean all of them. The way you seek attention, the way you avoid conflict, the way you sabotage good things in your life, the way you repeat the same patterns with different people. You see it all, crystal clear. And you'd think that seeing it would help you change it, right? That's what everyone says. Awareness is the first step to change. But here's the thing they don't tell you. Sometimes awareness just makes you feel stuck. Because now you're not just making mistakes. You're making mistakes while fully knowing that you're making them. You're watching yourself do the thing you said you wouldn't do anymore. You're falling into the same trap while simultaneously narrating to yourself that you're falling into the trap. It's like being in a glass prison. You can see everything outside. You know exactly where you want to be, but you can't figure out how to get there. And the worst part is that you're painfully aware of the fact that you're stuck. This creates something really dangerous. It creates a gap between who you are and who you think you should be. And that gap grows wider the more self-aware you become. Because the more you learn about psychology, personal development, healthy behaviors, all of that stuff, the higher your standards become for yourself. You know what a healthy person would do in any situation. You know what the right choice is. You know what you should say, how you should react, what boundaries you should set. But you don't do it. And then you beat yourself up for not doing it, which makes the gap even bigger. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life. You know you should set a boundary with someone, but you don't. A normal person might just move on. Maybe they feel a little annoyed, but they get over it. But you? You spend the next 3 days analyzing why you didn't set the boundary. You trace it back to your childhood. You recognize the pattern. You journal about it. You talk to your friends about it. You make a plan to do better next time. And then next time comes, and you don't set the boundary again. And the whole cycle repeats. This is what I mean when I say your mind gets tired of itself. Because you're not just living your life anymore. You're constantly reviewing your life, analyzing your life, trying to optimize your life. There's no break. There's no moment where you just exist without commentary. Now, some of you might be thinking this sounds like anxiety or overthinking. And yeah, there's definitely overlap. But this is different. Anxiety is usually about the future. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? Overthinking is getting stuck on problems or decisions. But hyper self-awareness is about you. It's turning your entire existence into a research project where you're the subject. It's like being a scientist who's studying themselves, except you can never step outside the experiment to analyze it objectively because you are the experiment. And here's something really messed up. The more aware you become of your patterns, the more you start to feel like you're not in control. Because if you can see the patterns so clearly, if you can predict exactly what you're going to do, then are you even making choices anymore? Or are you just a collection of habits and triggers playing out the same script over and over? This is where people start to feel like they're watching their life happen instead of living it. Like they're a passenger in their own body. They see themselves react in ways they don't want to react. They watch themselves make choices they know aren't good for them, but they feel powerless to change it. And the irony is brutal. Self-awareness was supposed to give you more control, more freedom, more power over your life. But instead, it made you feel like you have less. So why does this happen? Why does something that's supposed to be helpful become a problem? Part of it is that we've turned self-awareness into a performance. We're not just trying to understand ourselves anymore. We're trying to optimize ourselves. We're trying to become the best version of ourselves. We're trying to fix every flaw, heal every wound, correct every mistake. And that's a lot of pressure. Because the thing about self-improvement is that there's no finish line. There's always something else to work on. Always another layer to peel back. Always another pattern to break. Always another trauma to heal. It becomes a full-time job. And it's a job you can never quit because you're taking yourself with you everywhere you go. Another reason this happens is that we've confused self-awareness with self-judgment. Real self-awareness is just noticing things without adding a story to them. Oh, I interrupted that person. Oh, I felt anxious in that situation. Oh, I avoided that conversation. But we don't do that. We notice something and immediately add judgment to it. I interrupted that person because I'm selfish. I felt anxious because I'm broken. I avoided that conversation because I'm a coward. See the difference? One is observation. The other is prosecution. And when you're constantly prosecuting yourself, of course your mind gets tired. Of course you feel exhausted. You're running a trial against yourself every single day where you're the defendant, the prosecutor, and the judge all at once. And here's something that really bothers me. We've been sold this idea that if you just become aware enough, if you just understand yourself deeply enough, change will naturally follow. Like awareness automatically leads to transformation. But that's not how it works. Awareness doesn't equal change. Sometimes awareness just equals more awareness. You can know everything about why you do what you do and still do it. You can understand your patterns perfectly and still repeat them. Because knowing something intellectually is very different from being able to change it in real time. Your brain has been wiring these patterns for years, maybe decades. You're not going to rewire them just by noticing them. This is where people get really frustrated. They feel like they're doing everything right. They're going to therapy, they're reading books, they're journaling, they're meditating, they're processing their emotions. They're aware of everything, but they're not changing. Or they're changing so slowly that it feels like nothing's happening. And that creates this horrible feeling of being stuck in quicksand. The more you struggle, the more you analyze, the more stuck you feel. So what do? How do you deal with this? Because I'm not saying self-awareness is bad. It's not. Understanding yourself is important. But there has to be a balance. First thing is you need to give yourself permission to just live sometimes. Not everything needs to be analyzed. Not every moment needs to be a learning opportunity. Not every mistake needs to be traced back to its root cause. Sometimes you can just mess up and move on. Sometimes you can just feel something without needing to understand why. Sometimes you can just be human without turning it into a therapy session. This is harder than it sounds, especially if you've been doing the self-awareness thing for a while. Because you've trained your brain to always be watching, always be analyzing. But you need to practice turning that off sometimes. Think of it like this. If you went to the gym and worked out every single muscle in your body for 8 hours a day, every day, you wouldn't get stronger. You'd break down. Your body needs rest to actually build muscle.